The smell of iris, while it varies a bit here and there, can generally be described as kind of a fleshy, powdery. Many people say it smells like a sidewalk after it's rained, kind of like damp concrete. And while that sounds kind of terrible, the actual end result in men's fragrance is anything but. It lends a refined, dignified, many would say upscale, nearly reverential kind of presence in men's fragrance. Iris is a favorite note among many, so today we're going to be focusing on fragrances that feature the note of iris. In particular, 6 fragrances that are designer fragrances that feature the note of iris. So when we return, we're going to take a look at those. That and more is coming your way, so stay tuned. Welcome back everyone, I'm Tommy with Studio Sense. Welcome to another brand new day and a brand new video about fragrance, in specific, the fragrant note of iris. Many people describe it as being a lipsticky or makeup-y note, and that's simply because iris, or the aroma chemicals that make up like the smell of iris, are often used in cosmetics. It's like the first thing you smell when you open up a woman's compact or lipstick case is makeup-y kind of iris. But when used correctly and specifically in men's fragrance, it can be a fantastic fragrant note. So today we're looking at 6 fragrances that feature the note of iris. Let's go ahead and get right into our list. So I've described iris as kind of being an upscale note, right? It can be used in upscale environments, upscale situations, black tie affairs, but people always equate affluence or very expensive with upscale, and that's not always the case. Proving that to be true is this fragrance from the house of Zara. It is Zara 9.0. The way I'm featuring today's fragrance is in reference to intensity. So we're going to do the least iris intense first, and each fragrance will be subsequently higher in intensity in terms of the note of iris. This is going to be the first one that we're talking about, so it's got the least intense iris note in it, but it's very dominant in Zara 9.0. This one opens with a bergamot juniper coriander combination, so it is spicy, it is very sharp, very bracing. In the heart is where you get the iris. It's pepper, cardamom, and iris is the trio, but you primarily get that iris buoyed by those other 2 notes and the open. Vetiver, amber, and cedarwood are what's in the base, and many people actually have said that this is the poor man's Dior Homme Intense. And it does smell very similar, but primarily what people are getting is that iris. Iris is one of those fragrant notes that as soon as you smell it, you know exactly what it is, and it reminds you of other fragrances that carry the note of iris. And this reminds many people of Dior Homme Intense, but it is, again, very inexpensive, right at 20 bucks from the Zara website. Fantastic iris-oriented fragrance. Zara 9.0. We're going to bump up the intensity just a bit more with a very, very popular fragrance from the house of Prada. This fragrance has often been said to be the laundry detergent fresh fragrance of the ages for men. It is none other than Prada L'Homme. This is, however, considered a woody chypre fragrance because it's subsidized by other fragrant notes that buoy that note of iris and blend with it supremely well. You've got neroli, black pepper, cardamom, carrot seeds, and there's a particular note that blends supremely well with iris that is also you could call it a floral note, because iris is as well a floral note, and that is the note of violet. You'll often see violet and iris paired together in a lot of men's fragrance just because they blend so very well together, and they do in Prada L'Homme. Base notes are amber, cedar, patchouli, and sandalwood, just a very rich, smooth, soft, and that's what kind of lends that laundry detergent fresh feel and smell, are those softer, woody notes in Prada L'Homme. Bumping up our intensity even further on the scale of iris is a fragrance that is relatively new to the scene. Very new to the scene, actually. It was released this year. I talked about it not that long ago in a few videos past. It is by Narciso Rodriguez, For Him Blue Noir Parfum. This fragrance is one of those that I was not expecting iris to play a dominant role in, but it definitely does. You get that iris immediately, very blue-oriented iris as soon as you smell it straight out of the atomizer. And when it dries down, you get just a burgeoning effect. Just it grows stronger and stronger over time. And it's just an extremely iris-oriented or iris-esque kind of fragrance. I really enjoyed this one. I'm really happy to see it come out because the For Him line of fragrances are all very powerful. The very first For Him fragrance is the epitome of damp concrete. It's got that iris violet complement together, but this one is specifically iris oriented. You've also got a nice woody backbone with cypress and blue atlas cedar, sandalwood, leather, tonka bean, vetiver. It's just a wonderful, very modern smelling masculine fragrance, and that's really the trick, is to, because iris is also in cosmetic products and feminine fragrances, so how do you make it masculine? Well, you pair it with other notes, and then it kind of gets that dominant masculine feel, and you know for sure that you're wearing a man's fragrance, and that's exactly how, for him, Bleu Noir Parfum comes off. Our next iris-oriented fragrance, bumping up that spectrum of intensity even further, is a fragrance from Givenchy. Now this one happens to be a relaunch, came out in 2017 from the original Gentleman line of fragrances. It is Givenchy Gentleman, the 2017 edition or relaunched version. Now the thing about the Givenchy Gentleman line, they are all iris specific. The Iris Eau de Parfum is an amazing, you know, the one that the bottom is black. That's how you can tell the difference, because all the bottles are the same with the exception of either the gradient or the color. It was really hard to choose specifically one to show to you guys today that is the most iris intense. And so I definitely did a comparison, and this particular version, the 2017, has the most very strong iris orientation. So if you're looking for an iris-oriented masculine fragrance in the Givenchy Gentleman line of fragrances, they're all going to be good. This one is going to be the strongest, however, pushing forward that iris note. This one also has pear and cardamom, but instead of pairing violet with iris, it pairs lavender with iris, and it does very similar things in terms of that kind of, it synergizes it quite a bit. It makes it a bit stronger. You've got patchouli, leather, and vanilla in the base. Wonderful, wonderful masculine iris fragrance. I really enjoy this one, and I often forget about it because I do have a preference for some of the other Gentleman fragrances, but I will definitely start wearing this more because I like how strong that iris note is in Givenchy Gentleman, the 2017 edition. Going darker and darker down that iris-oriented rabbit hole, getting even more intense, is a fragrance from Valentino, and of course you know what I'm talking about, Valentino Uomo Intense. This is the intense black leather and iris-oriented fragrance. Leather goes really well with iris because iris is such a sharp note. It doesn't really have any resins to hang your olfactive sense on, but when you add leather and iris together, it's just a perfect duo, and that's exactly what you find in Valentino Uomo Intense. Of course, it opens with mandarin and clary sage, so it's spicy, a little bit of citrus there to kind of mediate that spice. You've got iris and tonka bean in the heart. You've got that black leather that I talked about, and the vanilla bean in the base. Wonderful fragrance. Now, when you smell this, this has that kind of makeup-y, lipsticky kind of iris in it. It is really strong straight out of the atomizer. While it maintains that strength, it becomes a lot more masculine as it dries down. So you don't have to worry about it smelling like lipstick or like makeup or cosmetics. It doesn't at all. It really is mediated very well by that vanilla bean, that black leather. One of the best and the strongest iris-oriented fragrances for men on the market, Valentino Uomo Intense. All right, guys, our final and sixth fragrance in this list, and heretofore the strongest iris-oriented fragrance on the market in terms of designer fragrances, at least in my experience, and I hope that you can prove me wrong in the comments below if you want to add another fragrance, is by Christian Dior, and it is none other than Dior Homme Intense. Dior Homme Intense is a iris-centric fragrance for the ages. It is very strong iris. It's got that makeup-y lipstick cosmetic smell straight out of the atomizer, but again, once you spray that on skin, it warms up quite a bit. The chemical composition changes just enough to make it that wonderful woody iris masculine combination that we know and love in Dior Homme Intense. Now this features a Florentine Iris Absolute, which is just a bit of a stronger kind of, you could almost say camphorous kind of iris. That's what its claim to fame is really in terms of its longevity and its life. Heart is Ecuadorian ambrette seed, so you've got some ambrette seed there, a little bit of spice, and in the base that woody backbone of Virginia cedar. The way the formula is blended and the way Dior Homme Intense comes across is a very, very refined fragrance. Now, you can wear this casually, but when you first smell it, you feel that refinement in the DNA, in the scent profile. Kind of makes you want to dress up and go somewhere where it's very upscale, just because it feels like it's going to fit in a lot better in a situation like that. And I agree. And that's where I think Dior Homme Intense is also presented at its best. Well guys, I know we went over those fragrances very briefly, but these are, in my opinion, 6 of the best designer fragrances on the market. You're not going to break the bank in purchasing them. I started with the least expensive, also the least intense iris, and kind of went forward and reached the kind of the apex with Dior Homme as being the most expensive and the most intense. Kind of did that on purpose to give you guys an idea of that graduation. If you've got experience with these fragrances, let me know what your experience is like, or if you know of other iris-oriented fragrances that you feel belong in this list, let me know that as well in the comments below. Thanks so much though for stopping by and checking out today's video list about iris fragrances for men. And as always, thank you so much for your support on my channel. I'm Tommy with Studio Sense, and I'll see you tomorrow.